Hey guys, Julian here, BPM podcast. My next guest, Alan Stevens, is an international reader of people. The most fascinating conversation that I have had in a very long time. For me personally, the psychology, the mentality, the physical and mental attributes of people has always been fascinating. That's probably why I enjoy sales so much myself. But we talk about a whole range of different things. We're talking about the opportunities coming outside of COVID. We're talking about psychopaths and what makes them tick. Random, but unbelievable. And we talk about the character versus personality traits and how we can actually distinguish between the two, between values and ethics and morals. And then also from the other side of things is how we actually display them. We talk about reading people and we're talking about a whole range of different things. It's been absolutely amazing. I know you're going to love this one as much as I loved recording it. Jumping into the conversation now, Alan Stevens, international face profiler, and probably the best wingman in Tinder on the planet. Enjoy. How would you explain what you do?
Well, first of all, international profiling communication specialist. International because my businesses are worldwide. Profiling communication specialist. Well, being able to read somebody is the most important thing. If you can connect with them, you understand them. And that's what profiling is all about. How to be able to read somebody, understand them, and know how to talk to them in the way that they want to be spoken to.
Sure.
But understanding yourself along the way.
Yeah. Major skill set when it comes to business and interacting personally. Yeah. What made you get into it?
Oh, it was the getting into it all came about being crap at reading people.
Okay.
Is what actually happened. When I looked at I was 23 years old in Sydney in Telecom, was sent to Newcastle to put in charge of men who were older than me. And everybody was, as I said, older. My second in charge was 38. I was 23. And so with that being the situation, I had to get them on side. In my mid-30s, I thought, great, joined the surf club, became a lifesaver, taught me into being a patrol captain, and put me in charge of everybody that nobody else wanted. So I found out why they wanted me as a patrol captain. They thought because I ran a depot in Telecom, I should be able to organise those kids. The end result was we were the patrol of the year.
Okay.
And so taught me to be the club captain, so I became the club captain. And with that, then I thought, great, same age as everybody else. But no, I was the same age, but the least experienced because I'd only been there 5 minutes as far as they were concerned, and they'd been there since they were young kids.
Yeah.
So next thing from there was...
Was it hard to manage that relationship from a professional point of view, or that was quite easy for you? Or
it wasn't something that I really thought about. It was just something that I actually did. I had a job. I knew I had these kids. You know, and when I say kids, they were into being young men, and we're responsible for the people on the beach.
Yeah,
and there's no one else around but us. And if somebody gets into trouble, it was on our heads. So, but at the same time, I knew that to get them to do what I needed them to do, I needed to find a way in which to treat them in a way that they wanted to do what I asked them to do.
Yeah. So leadership rather than management.
Well. Yeah. So that's where people go wrong these days. They're always looking at, well, how do I manage people? Well, stop trying to manage your people. Lead them instead. Because a leader will be a great manager, but a manager is not necessarily a leader.
Yeah, nice. I like that.
You know, one's a subset of the other, but it will never be the other on its own. So if you manage people, people only do what they have to do. If you lead them, they will do everything that you want them to do.
Yeah,
because you treat people with respect, you give them a place where they belong, you give them some authority, make them feel that they contribute, and they'll work their tails off.
Yeah.
And then you can back away. And if you're a business person, you keep hearing the day everyone says, don't work in your business, work on your business. Well, you can't work on your business if you're managing your staff.
Yeah.
So you've got to get them to a level where they manage themselves. The only way you do that is become a leader. And then you can work on your business. That way you can grow it.
And it's more than just delegation, right? It's more than just showing up every day and being excited. What are the key attributes that you think leadership, and obviously in your experience and wealth of knowledge, what's been the key attributes that you define as a great leader versus a good one versus a manager and it's not just the people following, right?
That's right. Well, if I look at, say, first of all, a good leader, the best leader, is somebody who understands his or her staff, understands why they do the things they do, understands their personality. And if you understand their personality, you give them the tasks that they're going to be good at. You don't give them tasks that they're not going to be good at.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of having a team is having people who have different skills. One person will love doing some stuff, but everybody else will hate doing that.
Sure.
And the stuff that the others then hate to do, that one will love, and the ones that they love to do, that person will hate. So people then work together. So if you're working with the stuff you love to do, you're going to be more productive, you're going to be happier at what you do. And the other people push that across the table, the stuff you don't like that they love, that's going to make them happy.
Yeah.
So even though those people may not want to go on holidays on the weekend, they're glad each other is there on Monday, because the other people are doing the tasks that you don't want to do. You're going to be happier. And if they're happy doing the stuff that you don't want to do, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it just builds that. And this is what teams are made up. They're not made of the people who are the same. They're made up of people who are different.
Mm. Do you think that, especially now with probably the landscape across the board has become quite divisive and very, it's my way or the highway, and there's a lack of understanding in people these days. Do you find that's getting worse, or do you find it's getting better? Because there's a lot of resources out there that explain these things, and Simon Sinek on leadership and how leaders eat last, and there's so much resources, and yet we seem to have a massive displacement of understanding each other right now.
That's it. Well, it's right across the board. See, I keep hearing people talking about creating business relationships. And, there is no such thing as a business relationship. Businesses don't talk to each other. It's the people in the business that talk to each other.
Nice, I like
so
that.
Whether you're business to business or business to customer, you're still human to human. Now, people will say, oh, it's people to people. Well, we don't really respect people in general, but humans, and we become a little bit more human, we have a better relationship. So it's H to H, not B to C or B to B.
I like
and
this.
So
very different
every relationship, so every relationship's a personal one. The end result is, excuse me, that people then think while they're building a personal relationship in the business, they're thinking personal relationships all the time, which means they build a better relationship with their spouse, better with their kids, better with their community. So if everyone focused on build a personal relationship, you'd be doing it right across the board, not just trying to do it a business relationship in the business itself.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take, because B2C is what I've done, B2B is what I've done, and you always talk about business relationship, and then you think, wait a minute, the best relationships that I have in my network are the ones that we've gone through things together and experienced things together. And I guess the relationship only becomes stronger with successes and failures and understanding each other in strengths and weaknesses, as opposed to Spartan Business Academy or IQ International having a business relationship with Alan Stevens' company. It's a very, very different idea when it comes to that. I like that.
For anybody who doesn't appreciate that, especially if they're, say, a financial institution where you've got, say, financial advisors. The financial advisor has a relationship with his or her book, the number of people in their group. Now, if that financial advisor leaves and goes to another company, it's not long before that person's book is also transferred across to the other company as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Try and tell me it's a business relationship. No, it's not. It's a personal one.
Yeah.
If people don't buy what you're selling, whether it be a product or a service, they buy you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same thing in a business. If you actually present yourself in a way in which people buy you as a leader, and they'll follow you everywhere. In Waal, for instance, people will put their lives down on the line for the person who's leading them when they respect that leader.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Do the same thing in your business. Yeah. And people forgot about this for many, many decades. And as we went into the COVID, that whole situation, people were already at a disadvantage because they weren't making the money they could have made. And the end result was a lot of businesses went out of business in the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But the ones that really work with their staff will survive.
Yeah. It's more than just cash flow. I mean, cash flow is a pretty massive part. I was actually thinking about, used to have a restaurant back on the Gold Coast, and I was thinking now is the ultimate reset for your business. If you were doing well or not so well before, now is the perfect time to reinvent. You probably should have been doing that last 3 months, but reinvent. So when the customers start coming back, you need to make sure that this is amazing. Like, you need to make sure that this is spot on, because you now have a reset. People have probably forgotten about the restaurant before, whether it's good or bad. Now is the perfect time. People haven't eaten out for, months. So, this where there's been a bit of a mess from COVID, now there's a perfect opportunity to literally reinvent the whole business. I'm not saying you need to change tables and menus and stuff like that, but it's just the way you deliver business and the way you serve people and the way the meal comes out. It's a perfect reset. If there was ever a chance in life and time, now is the ultimate reset. What are your thoughts on the opportunities coming on the other side of this?
Oh, they're absolutely massive for those that are wise enough. A lot of people will be thinking about the negative side of it, and they focus on that. That's where they get more of. As you said, cash flow is important. As I say, cash flow is king. But cash flow doesn't happen if you don't have the relationships behind it to create that cash flow.
Yeah.
Everything comes back to the way in which we deal with people. It's like, as I say to people, if you think of a building, a concrete slab, you put that on the ground and put a building on top of it, but you haven't put footings in under the concrete slab. Sooner or later, the concrete slab's going to shift. And when it does, the building's going to crumble. What you have to do is put your footings down really deep into the ground so that the frost can't get under them or anything else, and they can't lift the slab. That's your relationships in business, the roots of a tree. The strong foundations under a massive big building. You might have a building that's hundreds of stories high, but its center of gravity is within the first 15 floors. And so it's anchored to the ground really solidly. That's what your relationships are in your business. Without those, you won't get the cash flow. You won't have the clients. But leading into this, two situations, if somebody was really running well and they had a great reputation with their clients and their customers, they can actually start advertising now about how they're coming back. And in this time, they've been able to improve their services even greater.
Yeah.
So the people have got a greater expectation, but making sure they apply that when they open their doors again. The people who weren't doing so well and knew they weren't getting the clients, this is where some humility really comes in. If they turned around and advertised out to there, that we learnt a lot over the COVID situation. We've actually learned of how to improve our relationships. We realised that in this downtime, how much we've missed our clients and how much we hadn't really given the greatest level of connection to them before, but now we're really focused on the service. Come in and check out what it's like.
Yeah, it's amazing how much you miss something when it's gone, right? It's always the same thing,
Yeah. And you can play the royalties for that tune and play that as well, the things you miss when they're gone. Yeah. And put the ad into that. So there's lots of opportunities for people to move forward, but it's also getting out of their ego, because a lot of companies that weren't doing very well, they were running on ego. The management thought they couldn't be taught anything. They already knew everything.
Yeah.
As they say, the most important thing you'll ever learn is the next thing you learn after you think you know everything.
Yeah.
So this is how you grow and keep moving forward.
I think at 19, I knew everything at 19, and then at 21, I realized I knew nothing, and then now I'm 38, I still know less than I did at 19. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I know that when I was growing up, there was the old saying, "Employ a teenager while they still know everything."
I think now is a little bit different for the common sense and common knowledge of people that are quite young is pretty limited. I watched something on TikTok or something, and there was all these songs that you would think everyone would know, and these young teenagers, probably 14, 15, had no idea what these songs were, and they're not like 1960s, they're literally 2000s, 2010, no idea. It's like wow.
That's it. The only problem with that as well is it makes us feel old.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. I knew I was getting old when I started to employ people and contract people to my company that were born the year that I left school. That's when I knew. I was like, oh, this is I'm getting a little bit old for this industry now. Mate, that's phenomenal story in regard to leading into it. What made you, on the pursuit of reading people and understanding people? What was it about that? I mean, for me, psychology of people and human, I've said this countless times, humans are the most interesting species on the planet. Obviously, I'm not well informed of all the other ones, but to me, their decision-making processes, what motivates them, what frustrates them, what their intrinsic attributes are. To me, that's quite fascinating as a human race. 7 billion plus people, very, very different personalities, different walks of life. What makes it? Is it the environmental? Is it education? I find all those different pathways and linkages between all of that. I find that extremely fascinating. But for you, what makes it interesting? What is it about reading people and understanding people?
The fact that people can be very simplistic, but at the same time are so complex as well.
Yeah.
Everybody, because once I started learning how to profile people and realised that there were so many different traits, and the combination of those traits were so varied, that there are no two people on the planet who are identical. No two people who think the same way, because the shape of our brain is made up of the different parts of the brain that we use, how we think. And we know that there are no two skulls, like fingerprints, there are no two skulls on the planet which are identical. So it's proving that every brain thinks differently to each other. There might be a lot of similarities, but there is so many things where it makes each person unique. So it really means that everybody on the planet has got a position that they can play. Even a psychopath, if we think about war times, for instance, a leader who is very much focused on the people is a shocking leader to have in a wartime. You need somebody who's ruthless, because the one who's worried about lives is going to get more people killed because they're worried and second guessing all the time. Mm-hmm. Whereas the psychopath will just get out there and get it done. And we've seen that with a few of our leaders in the past. Winston Churchill was lousy in England, was lousy in peace times, but brilliant in war times. That was his forte. So everybody has a role to play. We just got to be able to recognise that in a person. And in business, the more we can understand our staff, understand how they think and process, where their strengths are, we know then what tasks to give them, and we know where they're the weakness side, because every strength has a weakness on the other side. So we know what things will push their buttons, and we therefore know how to set their environment up so those buttons don't get pushed, and what tasks not to give them, that put them in the direction where they're really happy, because if they're happy, they're productive. If they're productive, you're making more money. At the same time, they're going home to their spouse, they're happier, so there's less domestic problems at home, happier with their kids, and if they've got no problems at home, then they're coming back to work the next day happy as well.
Yeah.
So it's a never-ending circle. You've got to look after the whole lot.
Yeah. You touch on psychopaths. Now, this is something I didn't expect to go here, but criminology and the mind of a killer, murderer, serial, whatever, is it part genius? Is it part just completely psycho? Have you done it? Like, what is it about those people that is so completely antisocial? And yet, to me, the mind of a criminal, let's say El Chapo, or from a business point of view, to be able to create, obviously it's on fear and intimidation and murder based on those things. So let's put that as a pretext. But what is it about those people that is so completely different than the normal? Or is it just that their brain is wired a little bit sideways?
That's the key thing. People think, they're broken. No, they're not broken. They're just wired completely different. Mm-hmm. And somebody who's right in, is 100% psychopath, because psychopaths are all about themselves. Like, even narcissists, it's all about themselves. Sociopaths, they don't care about anybody else. There's three types of people that psychopaths notice. The people that will be a benefit to them, so they ingratiate themselves with them, they're their assets. Anybody who threatens them, they'll try and destroy. So they need to notice those. Everybody else that they ignore are the ones that are neither an asset or a threat to them. They ignore everybody else. And if you look at the description of a leader and a psychopath, on the surface, they're identical.
Yeah.
They're both charismatic. They're both commanding. They both demand to get things done. They're both driven to and get success. Mm-hmm. But it's the motive behind what they do.
Sure.
A leader is leading people and taking them forward, whereas a psychopath is using those people to take themselves forward.
Yeah.
But they're not broken, they're just wired differently.
Mm-hmm.
And we then turn around and think, right, we can fix them. And that's like taking a DC engine and putting an AC supply through it.
Yeah.
It might work for a moment, but it's not going to work for very long. It just reverts back to the way it was.
Sure.
They learn how to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, that's quite fascinating. I've seen Piers Morgan interview a few of the serial killers, and some of them are completely no remorse. There's no feeling behind it. Completely unbelievable. I was watching the one the other day, and he looked like he was a broken man. Like he looked like, you know what? That was an old me. I realized that wasn't me. It was completely the opposite. And you almost think this old guy must have been older guy, 60s, in jail, probably been there for 20 or 30 years. And it looked very, very different to someone that has blank, cold, and to me, it was like, wow, just imagine being in that mind, thinking, yeah, you know what? That probably wasn't the best move that I've made. And then having to live with that, multiple murders or whatever it was. To me, that is just, how did that happen? Like, was it an environmental thing? Was it, lack of education? Was it family? Like, how did you get there? And how did you think during that course of action, how do you think that was normal? How were you in the middle of that? Or is it pure rage? To me, that is just, wow, from a human.
This is where I've been looking very closely at that person, because the image they put forward, they're extremely good actors. They know how to play the role to get people to believe their stories. So is that person really remorseful or whatever? Or are they just playing and manipulating the audience? And they rely on the ego of the person who's interviewing them, like I say, a psychiatrist or whatever, to play the role. The thing is, it's a longer period of observation. It's watching them when they're not in that assessment stage.
Yeah.
It's seeing how when they drop their guard, and they're very good and clever at keeping their guard up, but there's going to be things where they think they're not being seen when they'll actually let it down. And that's when the truth will come out.
Wow.
So you've got to be careful of that side of it. But how they come about, well, we still don't know. A lot of people, there's a scale from what we would call, totally okay, right through to a psychopath. But we all fit somewhere on that line. Hopefully a lot of us are towards the good end, but we've all got a few things. And they use a scoring system, and when you get to a certain number, then you're a psychopath. But before that, you're not.
Okay.
You're something else. And I go, this is crazy because we're trying to categorize them into it, a spot. But those that are right down the far end, whether they were born that way, whether events have happened to them in their life, we see people who have come from really happy lives, great childhoods and everything else, and they're the most horrible people you've ever come across.
Yeah.
So what triggered that? Again, we're not absolutely sure.
Yeah.
The brain is quite an incredible place. We still only know a fraction of its capabilities. And we've been watching it and researching it for decades.
Yeah, and I suppose if you've got, let's say, 7 billion people, and like you said, everyone's unique like a snowflake, to map out the brain individualized, to do the proper research, you probably need a few, you need a very big database of people to work out a baseline of normality, if that's even possible,
Well, I've seen where they've done some tests where they've asked people questions, and I remember one announcer being interviewer and that being interviewed himself. He answered the question there. They put him in an MRI and put him through some certain things and watch where the brains lit up. And the part where his brains lit up were not in line with what they should have lit up if he had been through to the questionnaire.
Okay.
But he thought, and he said, look, I filled that out as I really felt. But the brain wasn't functioning that way because we have our own impression of where we fit on the scale of things. because
Yeah,
we're all biased. We are the center of our universes.
yeah, 100%.
Each and every one of us.
One fascinating, or two fascinating things coming out of that. I've done a few different personality tests. The good thing about that one, you can't fail, which is awesome. But and it almost depending on the mood or stage of life that I'm in at the time, you can actually get different personalities. Now, does that mean that, I suppose in essence, we're a chameleon of our environments, and me with my 4 daughters at home is a very, very different person than closing a deal in the boardroom, right? A very, very different person to right now. So is it that, is that just a normal inherent human trait to be quite fluid in our personalities, or is it you go through changes in life where I know definitely, like I said, at 19, I knew everything. And then, 21, I definitely changed. 25, I definitely changed. Probably 28, I changed again. Now that I'm 38, it's a very, very different person than does that evolution continue forever? Is that the purpose of life?
Yeah, because everything's always in change. The only thing that's constant is change.
Yeah.
There'll always be change there. But, people start to get confused between character and personality. Personality is the way in which we do things, the way in which we think, the way we take information in, the way we prefer to act and behave. Character is what we're thinking about and what our actions are going to be.
Okay.
So when I profile people, I work with the facial features. So if you lift weights, you're going to build muscles up. The same thing, if you feel an expression over and over again, you're going to pull that same expression. So if you concentrate in a certain way, you're going to work the muscles in your face. So therefore, the ridges and crevices are a history of how you like to think and process. But they don't tell me what you're thinking and processing.
Sure.
So two people can look very similar. One's can be a saint, the other one can be a sinner. One's trying to figure out, how do I help humanity? And the other one's looking at, how can humanity serve me? How can I use it to my benefit?
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So character is a bit more of your values and your ethics and your morals, and then personality is how you display those. Is that right?
That's it. So the changes in your personality are slower, but our character, our values and everything can change very quickly, depending on our environment and what happens to us. If you're in a very, you're a happily married man or woman, you got your kids and everything else, you got a great job, and then tomorrow there was a war and we had to go into active service, and now we're into the jungles and going through different things, and we're seeing other people killing other people. Our values would change in that period of time.
Yeah.
But the way in which we process our thoughts will still be fairly similar with our character. That will then compound in response to our environment, because half our personality is made up from the DNA, the stuff that's passed down from our parents, what we call nature. And then we have our nurture, which is our response to our environment. So as our environment changes, those traits will then start, nurture traits, I should say, will start to moderate and change.
Yeah.
But our values can change overnight depending on how severe the situations are.
Yeah. I've heard your personality can change in 3 major courses of action. Number 1 is moving continents, different cultures. Number 2 is death, and number 3 is kids, apparently.
Yeah, kids will do it to you. So I think every parent at the moment is going, oh yeah.
Homeschooling and yeah.
But the greater the event in your life, the faster it will have an impact on everything. But our behaviour to the way we raise our children, it's like there's a trait that I call a risk-taker trait, which we can see in everybody.
Yeah.
That one changes quite majorly when you start to have responsibilities like children. So a risk-taker trait is one, and I usually do this one in a big demonstration. I see everybody who's got that trait. I go, right, here's a scenario for you. You come up with a set of lights. They go from green to amber. What do you do? And the people who've got the risk-taker trait just go, I'll floor it.
Yeah.
But then the ones who got the opposite to that, who are averse to taking risk, when I say that, they go, I stop. And the people in between are calculated. They will work out how close they are and all the rest of it.
Sure.
But some people, I used to say to some people, do you drive fast? And they go, oh, no, I don't now. But when I was a kid, I did. But now I've got children and everything else. So the way we do things, but the impulse to be fast will still be there. But it may not be when they're driving. It'll be making different decisions.
Sure. Nice. There mustn't be many risk takers in Adelaide because they hit those anchors pretty hard when those orange lights come on.
Just make sure the risk taker's not up your tail when you do it.
That's right. Yeah, and usually that's me. It's like, oh my God, plenty of time. Keep going. So, wow. What is it between? Let's go into risk taking, because right now setting up business is all about risk, right? And managing that risk personally and professionally, and obviously financially as well. What is it about entrepreneurs that do they have a high risk tolerance? Do they have an innate value of pushing the envelope? What is it about entrepreneurs that is very, very different to, everyone else?
If I just took the risk taker trait itself, I'm a calculator risk taker.
Okay.
But I'm just as quick when it comes. I'm an entrepreneur, always have been. 68 years old now, never going to retire. I love what I do.
And 68 years young, I think.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you. Even with the colour's gone out of the beard, the whole bit, but there you go.
The silver fox.
That's it. But what I love about this is that I always see the opportunities that are there. Mm-hmm. This has come back to more of an attitude to life. Some people just don't see the opportunities. All they can see is the things that have gone wrong. After I left Telecom, after 23 years with them, I had a business. We ran it for a few years. We had a massive debt with Xerox, who we were hired a machine from at the time. We had a maintenance contract on it, which was massive. We couldn't get the clients we wanted, so we ended up closing our doors. I'd lost just about everything at that point. My superannuation, the whole lot had gone. Mm-hmm. And went and saw an accountant, a friend put me onto a new accountant, went and saw him, and he looked at me and he said, well, I could tell you got enough money left for a razor blade. And I went, what are you talking about? He said, cut your wrist. And I went, I came here for your advice. He goes, no. Wow. I said, I had to wipe the smile off your face. He said, it's driving me nuts.
Yeah.
You've lost this. You buried your mother. You've got 2 of your mates have committed suicide in the last 18 months, and you've got a smile on your face. I said, all those things were horrible. Losing the business is horrible as well. But if I focus on that, nothing's going to get better. It's only going to get worse because I'll have less money as I go along.
Yeah.
So I have to turn around and look for opportunities. Mm-hmm. Because while I'm looking at a door that's shutting, I'm missing the door on the other side that's opening. Mm-hmm. And I want to keep moving forward. So an entrepreneur is always looking forward, and the person who, is not an entrepreneur is looking at the doors that are shutting behind them. Mm-hmm. And who has the best life? Who has the most enjoyable life? Mm. It's the entrepreneur. So
I don't think it's the easiest. We're not talking about easy and hard. We're talking about, one filled with purpose and vision and excitement.
That's
and passion. Yeah. That's
because
life, really, to me.
It becomes easy when you've got the right attitude, or easier. Nothing's ever easy. Entrepreneurs work their tails off to create what they create. Mm. But they have that attitude that the future is better than what today. It can always be better than what today can be.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of my favourite sayings that I say to people is that may the best of your today be the worst of your tomorrows.
Nice.
So that every day gets better and better as you go along.
Yeah, yeah.
And that to be every day. And that's the way an entrepreneur is thinking. They're going, right, if I tell you this, I'll move on to this. This is where I can see their life going. Whereas the other people can't see that because they're still focused on everything that's gone wrong. Mm. And that's why by doing nothing and having that attitude, they make their life much harder, whereas the entrepreneur is making their life easier. Mm. Still has to work, as I said, but they're making it easier than what the people who aren't entrepreneurs are doing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, when it comes to something, the word of 2020, there's a few words in 2020 floating around that I'm looking forward to never hearing again. COVID is one of them. Unprecedented is another. Yeah. But in actual fact, we are dealing with the world has never been shut down like this ever. And I think even for the most hardened, most experienced and, entrepreneurs, I know a lot of them that were pretty rocked out of this situation. So, I guess the true test is how long do you stay in that situation, especially when the goals are changing every single day. For a while there, the restrictions and non-restrictions and the rules around what you could do within and outside your business was changing not quite minute by minute, but it wasn't too far off that. So that is a very, very difficult playing field when the goals are changing and the rules are changing. You're playing basketball, then you're playing tennis, like you're playing different games every single day. What do you see on the other side of things? How can we take stock of this situation and really learn from it? Are there lessons outside of our own frustrations and those sort of things that we probably need to get a little bit more in control? What do you think the biggest lesson out of this whole experience has been?
Well, it's going to be individual for each person, but I think a few things have come out of that people have realised. A lot of companies, and I hate the word pivot. God, people are doing that one to death. It's like, by the way, social distancing has also done my head in as well. Every time I see it in the supermarket, every few feet, it's physical distancing, guys. We are more, I've become more social right now than I've ever been in my life. The amount of stuff I'm doing online, the number of people I'm talking to, the networking that's being done online, not just local groups, but right around the world. So I've become more social than ever. And I really just does my head in every time somebody says, and all these people who should know better, social distancing, the term has actually made people fight that. They broke the law. They were out there because nobody wants to be socially distanced because we are social beings.
Yeah, that's right.
If they'd said just be physically distanced, then they would have gone, okay, I can be physically distanced. So I don't want to be next to the virus, but that doesn't stop me from being social. And we've noticed that a lot more people are being a lot more social. So a lot of people, there's been two extremes. Some of it has become nastier online, but a lot of it has also become a lot more collaborative online. And all you got to do is ask yourself, which end am I at? Which one is really serving me? And there's a collaboration in that's going to be at that point. I've got about 5 or 6 JVs that are all coming through the door right now. At the height of all the physical distancing and the shutdowns, all these people were coming through. So I'm allowing those opportunities to come through just in the way in which I think. So I think a lot of companies also realised that they were doing the same thing over and over again, shut their doors and then realised they couldn't do that anymore, but they could change their manufacturing to providing masks and other things that were needed at the time. So all of a sudden they've realised, hey, I can do something else. So that's something I throw out to everybody. If you're thinking, oh, I can't do what I did before, well, stop worrying about that and start asking, what's the new thing that I can do now? How can I move forward on what I'm doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
And go and just change the way in which you send your energy. If you send it towards the negative side of what you can't see, all you're going to get is more of what you can't see. But if you put it to the other side and go, rightio, what are the different opportunities? What else could I do? Then you open the door up for new ideas.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of a change that is. But you definitely need to look inside yourself, because at the start of all this, I was triggered as anything. Like at the start of the year, I remember putting up a post that I will choose this year not to get involved with political statements and ideologies. That lasted 6 days with the fires. I was like, oh my God, hopefully that memory doesn't come up next year. You know what I mean? And literally this first Q1, Q2 of the year was probably the most active I've been politically in my whole life. And I literally put up a post like, that's it this year. It was almost impossible not to feel something, frustration. I just couldn't help it. Like, it was just such a natural human experience that was just frustrating, And then about probably around about 2 months ago, I thought, that's it. There needs to be solid leadership. There needs to be, I'm not saying that, an influence online, but there needs to be solid leadership. There needs to be someone or something out there that's spruiking a positive message the way that we used to. And then funnily enough, within probably a week after that I started to think and post some positive things and start the podcast, which I've wanted to do for years. I literally have then seen other people that have, I don't think, copied me. I don't think that's very egotistical to think that they're copying me, but thinking the same things. And it's amazing how, obviously, in regard to an algorithm, how 2 weeks ago I could see everything negative and it literally was plastered everywhere. Now all of a sudden it's changed, and then there's this person. It's like, okay, we're coming back. You know what I mean? Like we're coming back, which is amazing to watch.
Well, it always comes back to your own thinking, because you ever gone out, bought a new car, and you don't see many of them on the road. So you buy a new car, and then every damn person's got the same car.
Yeah.
You think, right, do they follow me down to and see what I was buying? Is there a camera here watching me?
Yeah.
Because everyone's copied me. No, it's just that you didn't notice it before, because, as I say, we take in about 2 million bits of information every second through all of our sensors. Wow. But we only process 134 bits. We can only handle about 7 plus or minus 2 ideas at any one time, so between 9 and 5 ideas.
Yeah.
And so that's all we can think about at the one moment. But all this other stuff's going on. We get bombarded with, I think it's about several hundred newspapers full of content every day through all of our sensors are being thrown at us.
Yeah.
There's no way we can process all of that.
No.
But where we focus is what we're going to notice.
Yeah.
So if you focus on this being the end of the world, then that's what you're going to get. And they're the only people you're going to see around you.
Yeah.
Because like attracts like.
Yeah.
But if we then think about the positive side, then all of a sudden we find a lot of other people who are thinking the same way, and we think, oh my God, everyone's following me. No, we just finally got onto the same wavelength.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. It's the reticular activation system, right? So obviously as that filters down, it's amazing, because I was looking at buying a new car, but I was looking at about 20 different cars. Unfortunately for me, I now see all of them. There's cars everywhere.
But there's an advantage in that.
Yeah.
There's an advantage in that. But I see all, well, if any time you see one park, go and have a talk to the person who's parking the vehicle, because obviously they're driving it, and go, hey, tell us about your vehicle.
Yeah.
I guarantee they love to chat. They like to tell you how great a purchase they made.
100%.
If it's a lemon, they'll tell you.
100%.
But on the other side, they'll tell you all the great things about it.
Yeah.
The fuel economy, the number of cup holders, and all the rest of the stuff, whatever it is that excites them.
Yeah.
And by the way, you might have noticed cup holders are one of the things that excite me.
Yeah.
My original car before this one had no cup holders. So I said, when I buy another car, it has to have cup holders. And they thought, what about fuel economy? Yeah, that comes second. Cup holders first.
Yeah. I need to put my coffee in the way to somewhere. Exactly.
That's it.
So obviously reading people, understanding people is quite a good skill to have, right? It's not
necessary,
especially when there's so many people, right? How do you think that understanding people can dramatically increase your business? And what is it about people that you're looking for? Is it facial expressions? Is it the way they move? Is it the tonalities? Is it the language and how they speak? What is it about that? What's your first trigger, or what's your first?
Well, first, all of that and all of the above plus a bit more. The first thing is to have a foundation. So, as I said, your facial features tell me your personality because of that muscle development. Eyes will position themselves over time depending on whether you focus on what's directly in front of you or what you're focusing out here. So the width of your eyes will affect. All of these things, the ridges and crevices from that muscle action, the way you think, tells me exactly how you like to think. So I don't need to see you. This is where it leaves the other psychometric profiling systems. It stands apart from those. It doesn't supersede them, because there's places where DISC and Myers-Briggs and all those other systems, COBIES, the strength tests and all the rest, have their place. But with this, it's not affected by age. It's not affected by gender. It's not affected by education or anything else, or culture. Because we know when it comes to, say, the micro expressions, the facial expressions we have on our face, they will be, what causes them might be cultural, but they are emotion. So if you feel anger, you're going to have an angry look on your face. You're not going to have any other expression. It's going to be that. What causes the anger can vary from person to person, but the anger is always anger. So therefore, if you have a particular way of thinking, you'll create that ridge on your face, the crevices. So if I've got your face as an image, I can profile you. Your LinkedIn profiles, your websites, your Google Plus business, wherever you've got a LinkedIn profiles, wherever there's a face, I can profile the person, which now tells me how that person likes to think and process.
Yeah.
So I can put my presentation together. Then when I go through the door, I'll do a quick calculation and make sure the photograph is what I'm seeing in front of me. Because facial features won't change overnight. They take a little while to do that. Yeah. But the person might have a 20-year-old photograph on their site.
Sure.
But I'll have a basis of their traits. And by seeing their new face, now I know how their personality's changed. So I've got a pretty good idea of what's been happening in their life as well.
Mm-hmm.
But now when I present to them, I now know how to speak to them. First of all, I know where I am on the world scale. I've read where they are on the world scale, and I know how to change the way I like to be spoken to match the way that they want to be spoken to.
Mm-hmm.
I've then got their body language and expressions that give me their feedback. Is number one, have I read them right? Number two, is there anything emotional going on? Have I connected with them in the way I wanted to connect with them? And at the very far end, are they lying to me?
Yeah.
So I go from where some people just use the micro expressions and body language as lie detectors.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, she uses a term being not being a lie detector, but being a truth seeker.
Nice.
And so I use all of that to find out what the truth is. Have I connected with the person? Is that true? Are they speaking to me, connecting with me? Have I got that true? And then are they telling me the truth at the very end?
So we're watching Jeffrey Epstein last night on Netflix, right? And Prince Andrew did I didn't see that one originally, but I saw it in the documentary. And every time he said, now you tell me if this is just a trait or this is actually part of something. Every time he said he didn't do anything, his little thing twitched, just a little bit of a twitch, not much, just a bit of a twitch every single time. And the victims, blank, straight in the eye, no flinch, nothing. We just want an apology, blah, blah, blah. Didn't twitch, their faces. Is that part of, was he lying, or, is it more to that? Is it, what is it?
Not having seen the situation, I won't say yes, he was or he wasn't.
Sure.
But the thing to be aware of is that you're looking for benchmarking what's there, and then you're looking for variations.
Mm-hmm.
See, when a person thinks that they're going to be misjudged, this is why polygraph tests aren't that accurate, because they're based on your physiology.
Okay.
So if somebody is really nervous about being misread, they will give false positives.
Okay.
But somebody who thinks they can't be caught will give false negatives.
Yeah, wow.
So when somebody is really confident about lying, their physiology is not going to give much away.
Yeah.
But this is where you have to ask certain questions that start to unnerve them, where they think they can get caught. Then they'll start, their face and their body language will start to leak the truth.
Sure.
But by letting the person know how you're testing them, how accurate this thing is, the way in which you're going to be doing it, because everybody knows that the polygraphs have always had that bit of a dubious result. But when I work with people, I just mention, how accurate I was when I did all my testing, and say, look, if you're telling the truth, I'll know it, so don't worry. And straight away, if the person then trusts you, if you've made that connection with them, they start to settle down, and their face won't twitch and carry on.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it also depends. It's like there is a story about Pinocchio. Pinocchio's nose growing when he told a lie. Well, there is some truth in that kid story, in that we have inside of our nose the internal, what they call it, mucosa, is erectile tissue. And it's erectile tissue for our immune system, so that we don't breathe evenly through both nostrils. We breathe through one more than the other. It closes off and it causes the air to swell, throws the impurities into the nasal hairs and cleans it out of our system. This is to keep us healthy. Wow. And it changes from nose to nose. Now, because it's erectile tissue, it gorges with blood and everything else. So when we get a cold, we feel like it's all blocked up. No, it's just a swelling. It's closed the tube down.
Sure.
Same thing happens if we've been talking a lot, for instance. The nose will start to get itchy because we've had all the nerve endings on the surface have been working away. And the same thing is that we'll get that twitch on the face. So it could be twitching because of that. But it could also be because the person's lying and the blood's coming to their face and causing that erectile tissue to start to react. And all of a sudden, they start scratching their nose, or their nose starts twitching.
Sure. So that's why when they say if you touch your nose, you're lying, that's where that comes from?
Yeah. Well, if I'm talking to you and I get an itchy nose, I'll say, excuse me, and I do the scratch. Then I come back and I talk. It's when you're talking to somebody and they keep doing this or over their mouth every time, they're actually talking, because they're covering it up.
Yeah.
But and this is one of those I say to people, if you've got an itch, separate the two. Just give it that little bit of a break. Just say to the person, excuse me, this is itchy, and just scratch or whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because I can get anybody scratching. If I'm talking to them and I do something like this, then they'll start, after a while, if I do that a fair bit, next thing you know, they're doing it as well.
Yeah, sure.
It just transpires that way because it's auto-suggestive.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why...
Is that where yawns come from?
Yeah, well, all I've got to do, if somebody yawns, people will copy it. You have to just write the word yawn on the board behind you.
Just got an itchy head.
I've done this in presentations. And I put a slide up that said yawn, and next thing you know, the audience is yawning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the idea of yawning is to get blood back into your system to wake you up. That's why we yawn. And so, if somebody's falling asleep, I might do an exercise to get everybody yawning to sort of get the oxygen moving. Then you get them to move, and then you get back into the conversation again. Mm-hmm. But this is why you've always got to benchmark things. You're going to need to, when you're going to be looking at whether somebody's telling the truth or not, you need to understand more about this, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs get up on stage and they talk about body language, like folded arms. Mm-hmm. Straight away, that person's putting a barrier up to you. They're not interested in you. Mm-hmm. Well, if they got their arms folded and they're leaning forward and actually holding themselves up on the desk, and you're on the other side and they're talking to you, or they're leaning forward, standing up and leaning forward, they're nodding and they're asking you questions, leaning in, then this has got nothing to do with whether they like you.
Or they might just be cold.
It could be a cold. It could be that person's got a short shoulder. It could be this is the way that they've always, from a young child, this has become an automatic response. Mm-hmm. It could also be that the person that they're talking to intimidates them. They've got them on a pedestal. Yeah. And so they're giving themselves a little warm hug. Nice. But what I say to people is, watch the conversation. If every other indicator of the body, like the feet, the concentration, the focus, the questions, the nodding and everything is towards the person they're talking to, the arms have got nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. But the moment they unfold their arms, you go, aha, then it was more likely to be giving themselves a warm hug, and all of a sudden now they're more open to that person. They're really engaged. Yeah, sure. So it's the changes in the body language, not so much the body language movement or the pose, that you should be looking at.
That's right. Okay.
But when you're on stage and entertaining, well, people get them the wrong reasons. And that's why a lot of my stuff is not so much teaching them new stuff. It's actually unlearning some of the stuff they've learned badly.
Yeah. Yeah. Sales is a massive one for that. Obviously, when you're dealing with, door to door, people think that the skill set in door to door is actually quite low. Honestly, it's actually quite high, because you have that long to engage, impress, and break down that barrier. You have literally point something of a second. You don't have 7 seconds. Apparently, when you meet someone, you've got 7 seconds to impress them, or 3 seconds, whatever the number is. Door to door, you have... probably the attention span that we have these days is a lot less. That's why. It probably has
I think it's been mentioned lately that the attention span of a human is 7 seconds. The attention span of a goldfish is 8 seconds. Yeah. So my ambition is to come back in the next life as a goldfish.
At least I can concentrate a little bit better.
That's right.
So, I mean,
that's the way that we've got.
From door to door, you've got, a split second. The door opens and bam, you need to break down that barrier, impress them, engage them, not intimidate them. There's a whole range of different things. Is sales one of the major parts of reading people? And I mean, for me personally, I've spoken to about 100,000 people face to face. So when I'm looking at from a sales point of view, reading people, but then sometimes in a business point of view, or personally, I'm actually quite rubbish. My wife is much, much better at understanding people that are full of crap and not. I start thinking more of a visionary point of view and start taking the numbers that I've got on a spreadsheet all the way to the nth degree. And my wife's like, the guy's full of shit. And I'm like, really? And then what will happen? 3 months later, I'll find out, yep, my wife is right. So,
that's it. Well, I can see in your face and that you have a trait that I call affable, which means that you're quite comfortable standing close to people when you meet them for the first time. Mm-hmm. You make friends with everybody, and that's the upside of it. The downside of it is you also make friends with everybody, including the wrong people, the con artists.
Yeah.
Whereas the person who's got the opposite trait to you is more discerning. They may look as though they're less friendly. They stand back. They like to check out the audience. They like to see who's safe to be around and who's not safe to be around. Mm-hmm. The moment they've worked that out, they're as friendly as everybody else.
Yeah, that's my wife.
So I can see those people straight away. So that's one of the traits that as somebody walks towards me, I need to see that one straight away to know how much space to give them. Because if I step into the discerning person's personal space, they're not going to hear a damn word I say because they're just feeling about how uncomfortable they are.
Yeah. All they're going is through fight or flight.
That's it. And if they move back and I unintentionally move forward without even thinking about it, back into their space again, it's almost like a Benny Hill chase for those that are old enough to remember that. The person running around the room to get away from me, they're not listening to a damn thing.
Ever been in a group where, let's say there's 5 of you, and then the group slowly starts to move, counterclockwise, and all of a sudden you're 90 degrees further ahead. You're like, where's everyone going? We're just slowly on a rotisserie wheel, on a carousel.
And I guarantee at one end there's a discerning person, at the other end there's an affable person, and it's the invasion sort of happens. Yeah. And it's almost like you're either trying to screw yourself into the ground or out of the ground. It's just rotating around.
That's exactly right. For the guys that haven't done much work on reading people, obviously, how many years have you spent in this profession?
Well, mine has been an ongoing growth. As I said before, the most important thing I've ever learned was the next thing that I learned after I thought I knew everything.
Yeah,
I'd worked with body language back in the 1970s, the late 70s, when I first came to Newcastle, because that was the first thing, was trying to understand the guys. Mm-hmm. In the 80s, late 80s, I started doing psychometric profiling like Myers-Briggs and DISC and things like that.
Sure.
I left Telecom and went into, that was on the day they became Telstra, and went into my own business. And then after that, it was starting to understand more about the body language, but also the language itself. So I started working with NLP. Mm-hmm. And in the early 2000s, went back and did my master's in NLP a second time with a different group to just hone the skills. And working with the psychometric profiling, I was actually working with a company that taught currency trading, but none of their students made any money. So they got me to come in. I said, well, guys, it's their personalities. We need to understand it. I used the psychometric profiling, but realised that when you ask people questions, they tried to second guess it. And a few of them actually were honest with me. They said, we tried to figure out what sort of personality we had to be a good trader. Mm-hmm. And I went, no, you put your money on the table, your personality is going to come straight back out. We need to know that one.
Yeah.
And a guy just mentioned to me one day, you ever looked at reading faces? That was the late 2000s, or the noughties as we call them. Mm-hmm. And I went, that's cool. And I found Paul Ekman, who did all the research on the micro expressions all the way back from 1969 through to modern day. He's worked with, FBI, Border Control, all sorts of different groups, CIA. And then with an English lady living in California by the name of Naomi Tickle, who's now retired. She taught me the facial features. And I then realised that first of all, the body language and the expressions work very well together. If you miss one, it's going to be given. If you can try and control your expressions, you'll give it away in your body. If you try to really control your body, your expressions are going to give it away. So I needed that for the truth side, but I thought, right, the facial features just connect so beautifully to the facial expressions in working as a complement. And so I trained with both of them and put the body language together with it, the NLP, and created rapid trait profiling, which has now become universal or unique around the world. It's become a first, which has now attracted clients for me like Gillette and Disney Films. I went to London for their Star Wars launch, Rogue One, to work with on their behalf. I've worked with the Federal Police, a number of different courses I've run with them, and working with business of all sizes, and now teaching parents and school teachers how to read kids so they don't fall through the cracks. Mm-hmm. So relationships, as I said before, no such thing as a business relationship. Every relationship is personal, and once you have the skills, it works with every age. That's why gender doesn't affect it, age doesn't affect it, education levels don't affect it, because I don't need the person to talk to know their personality.
Yeah. Wow.
I just need their facial pictures. That's it.
Wow. You'd be great as a wingman on Tinder.
The number of people who have said to me, we've gone out, I had one of my clients, she actually said to me one day, and she'd finished the training and everything, she said, there's a face I'd like to have a look at. And she pulled a phone out, and I went, you're thinking of going on a date with him, are you? And she said, yeah, I just want to know what he'd be like. So I first of all said to her, tell me this first of all, what sort of a partner do you want? Because he's got a trait that we talk about as automatic giving. They're very quick to give. I said, you just want to get as much out of this person as you want, or are you somebody who needs to know that the other person really cares for you? Because a person who automatically gives without thinking You don't know if they really care for you because they just give.
Yeah.
But the person who thinks about it, they only give after they've thought about it. You only get an expensive present if they really value you. And she said, well, I need to know. And I said, well, that particular trait is not necessarily one you want.
Yeah.
And I had another young fella who said to me one day, we'd been at a networking do, a business one. He said, I'll walk you back. He said, I've got to walk, you go past my office. I said, okay, walking back from the pub to his office. And as we got to his office, he said, I'll just walk up the road. We're having a great conversation. Got up to where I turned off and he went, do you feel like another drink? And down the road is the Delaney Hotel here in Newcastle, which is known as the Office. On Friday afternoons, everybody would go from work and go to this one particular bar in the middle, and everyone would unwind and try and pick up. And I said, yeah, I'll have a beer with you, but no, I'm not going to be your wingman. And I said,
I know where this is going. Yeah.
But what I will do, if you get the beers in, we'll have a bit of an education. You can tell me what you see, and I'll tell you what is really going on.
Yeah.
He got the beers. We sat down. I said, what about that guy? Oh, he's going real good. I said, no, he's going home alone.
Yeah.
He said, but the girl next to him, she's touching her hair. She's doing all this stuff. And I went, yes, she is touching her hair. But when she touches her hair, in what direction is she looking? Mm. She's looking straight past him at an angle to the guy on the other side of the room. And I said, and every time this guy she's talking to turns around and talks to his friends, he looks back in this other direction again. Yeah. I said, and by the way, the guy on the other side of the room's going home alone as well. And he said, why? I said, because he's not even noticing anything.
Yeah, didn't even see her.
End of the night, turn the lights on, raise the lights to let everybody know it's time. It's like, it's like walking to the kitchen at night time, turn the light on, and if you've got cockroaches are running all over the floor, getting out of the light. And that's what people do in the pub. You turn the lights up and they're scurrying everywhere to get their last beer and to try and crack on. That last desperate effort to get somebody. Yeah. And as we were standing near the door, this guy and his mates went out and, got in the cab and off they went. And as the girls went past us, we could hear them talking about going up to the next pub up the road, Finnegan's, the nightclub, to see who else could buy them drinks for the rest of the night.
Too funny.
They had the cheapest night of all.
Yeah.
They didn't buy a drink. They had them all bought for them. So,
wow.
Yeah, I often get people ask me to be a wingman for them.
I can imagine.
So I just go for the entertainment.
Wow. Obviously, you've been in it for 40 years, and we'll wrap up there. Has there been any differences in personality traits, or has it been the same for millennia? Or is the modern society changing things in the way we're viewing things, the way we feel about things, or the way we're interacting with the environment around us? Has there been any changes over the last 40 years?
Well, anybody who's got a similar trait to somebody else is going to think the same way, regardless of whether they're from today, last decade, last century, or millennium before. We think in certain ways, but because we've gone from being the Neanderthals, as sapien has come along through all the different things, we have become more complex. There's more things that we've learned. So there's more traits that we've actually created along the way. But if we just go back from the young kids today back to their great-grandparents, there hasn't been much of a change in that period of time.
Yeah.
What we think of, the way we think is still pretty much the same. What we're thinking about, well, technology's changed and everything goes. Opportunities have changed. So the values, the drivers and things like that, they've changed, and that therefore will then bring some change in the traits. Because there used to be some traits that were just male and some that were just female. Now, both males and females can have those traits. Yeah, because our roles have changed. The things that we do, change.
And the clear, distinguished roles, house, business. You've got a lot more female CEOs, which 50 years ago was the unicorn.
Unheard of. That's right.
Yeah, and now you've got a lot of stay-at-home dads. So I suppose does that change the personality as a whole, or is it just more that they have felt a pulled towards, the mum is now the CEO and the dad is now the home dad, is there any differences, or there's just been a little bit more free?
Well, there's not going to be a major change in their face overnight. The major construction that's there, because by the time you've got children, you're in your 20s at least. And so with that stage, because there's about 10 traits I can see in a newborn child. There's about 24 traits by the time they're 5 years old. There's 40 traits when they're 10 years old. There's 60 before they leave school, which is a great time now to not only know what sports and hobbies will suit them from the very early age, but now we know what careers will suit their personalities because we're starting to see more traits developing. But after that, we have then got the traits just really just lock in.
Sure.
So it just means that the stay-at-home dad has decided he wants to be there, will still think in a similar way, but he won't. He'll just bring a new element to the home, the same as his wife will bring a different element to the workplace. And I think that, all those different things complement the workplace and also complement the home.
100%. Yeah, easy. Mate, it's been absolutely intriguing to have a speak to you about all these sort of things. I've definitely learned a lot. I know the listeners and the audience is definitely going to get a lot out of it. Is there a course that you can get involved with to learn more about this stuff from yourself, or where's the best resources? Your websites or?
Yeah. One of the things I love to do one thing I love to do with people is, you do a talk like this, they're all excited. You don't hit them with a course straight away. I'll hit them with a free gift.
Sure.
And that is, I'll give you the link to my 7 secrets, which is 6 emails that go out with videos in them that show them, explains how this stuff really works, how the science and art of reading people works. Then the next few we'll look at 3 traits that they can use straight away to build rapport with people. And then they'll go into where the eyes move when you're talking to people and they're sourcing information.
Yeah, sure.
And if they like that, well, then they'll be, in the last email, there'll be some ways in which they can then go and have a look at some courses.
Beautiful. Yeah,
so
beautiful.
I never try and sell to people. I like people to buy.
Yeah,
it's always their decision.
Yeah, look, it wasn't a sell at the end of it. That definitely was.
Yeah.
No one likes to be hit up. By the way, if you like this, buy this. I don't like that either. But definitely,
if you like this, here's a bit more for you.
That's right.
Then come and talk to me later.
Yeah, exactly. And if you like that, fantastic. And if you don't, then all good. But for me, I find this fascinating. Maybe it's because of business and sales. I've always found people quite intriguing. I've definitely looked at a lot of your stuff over the years and watched the way you interact and those sort of things. And obviously NLP is one thing, but I think you've taken reading people as a science and the art of reading people to a completely, I've never seen anyone like this in my whole career that can actually understand a picture on LinkedIn or whatever. That's an incredible skill.
If I may give just one quick example, I had somebody call me recently, one of my clients. He had a client who would not pay his full invoice. He'd finished the job with him and he was using COVID as an excuse, wanted something like $50,000 discount on the deal. And he'd postponed, if not cancelled, his next project. He showed me his face. I told him how to talk to him. The end result was he's now paying the full contract and they've started the new project.
Nice.
Simply because he knew how to communicate with him and knew what drove the guy, what decisions he would make and how to put the information in front of him in a way that intrigued him and moved him forward.
Amazing. Definitely a skill that every business owner needs to have, non-negotiable. Definitely, I always ask, what are the 3 non-negotiables in business? I think you've got 1, understanding people and reading them. That's 1 and 2. But definitely in finding a partner. There's a lot of people out there that I would know they're with the wrong people. They don't know that just yet. They'll find out, unfortunately, soon enough, or maybe not so soon. But definitely a skill, when you're looking at that many people on the planet. I think for me, I've always understood that there's 2 ways to make money. You either need to be really skilled, i.e. doctor, lawyer, and you've got a learnt skill behind you, or be very good with people. That's to me the really 2 ways to make a great income in this world. If you're not a doctor or a lawyer and you want to make big money, then get good with people, because that's where you can actually learn how to either sell or selling is not what I talk about very much. It's actually being solution focused. Every salesperson is great at finding solutions to objections or problems that the customer have. That's how you sell. You answer all the questions. There's nothing left, and essentially the customer's like, well, it's going to be beneficial for both of us. Let's move forward. That's really as simple as it is.
Yeah. So you're not selling a product, you're not selling a service, you're really selling yourself.
Yeah.
And people don't they don't care what you do or what you're providing until they know how much you care.
That's right.
And there's your relationship.
Yeah. And as cliche as it is, I think we've definitely forgotten that. But now coming on the other side of COVID, and we'll finish there, I think that's definitely a very, very good principle to bring back into the workplace and back into your business. So, mate, thanks very much for your time. I know you're a very busy man, and look forward to talking again soon.
You're my pleasure. If this has helped people, that's brilliant. Thank you.